They want to make Baldur's Gate 4. There's only one problem. The they is not Larian. As we know, the future of the Baldur's Gate series took a big hit to its potential when Larian opted to walk away from the license and work on their own games. The bad of that means that any future Baldur's Gate game will not have the steady hand of the team that made the only game in history, at least so far, to win all 5 Game of the Year awards, Baldur's Gate 3. The good news of that is that we'll continue to get Larian made games, and they're currently working on 2 of those, and games that they actually personally want to make, while still continuing to pick up awards for Baldur's Gate 3. But Hasbro, owner of Wizards of the Coast, which owns the D&D license and by extension Baldur's Gate, is already talking to partners about a Baldur's Gate 4. Several of them from the sound of it. And at the very least, they're saying the right things about it already. Now, it should be noted here that when we're talking about these games from Hasbro, there are some concerns, and we'll get to those in a moment. But one of them that needs to be kind of cleared up is that Larian was very clear, Sven Vinko was very clear that the relationship with Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast was not the reason why they decided not to continue working on Baldur's Gate. It wasn't that it was an acrimonious relationship or anything like that. It was more about they wanted to do their own thing. Larian wanted to do, well, Larian things. And also throughout their multiple interviews and media tours over the last really year or so, they've talked about how there was some difficulty in trying to adapt the 5e D&D combat system, and how there were things that they wanted to do with Baldur's Gate 3 that they just couldn't because it didn't work with that system. And I mean, they've also talked about how difficult it would have been to kind of keep going, build a DLC off of that, because going higher level than what you already were would have caused some cataclysmic difficulties. Really, it kind of sounded like some of their creativity was restricted and they want to get back to their creativity. Just a noble goal, and just makes me appreciate Larian all the more. But Hasbro has also been the center of several layoffs over the years due to poor toy sales, including at Wizards of the Coast, despite Wizards doing exceptionally well in their own right. On just fun note, when I was recording this video, we found out that the president of Wizards of the Coast is leaving, and they're currently looking for a successor. Still, Hasbro has seen the value in its games IP, and not long ago reported that starting in 2026, they plan to have 1 major digital title in D&D, and then between 2027 and 2030, they're looking to have 1 or 2 each year, which sounds alarming, and I get it. I understand why it sounds alarming, but to understand what that means, you have to kind of look at what Hasbro actually does. Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast do not make their own games. They find partners to do it. Partners like Larian, or some that don't work out quite as well as Larian. These are all licensing partners, other game developers that will make the games for Hasbro, for Wizards of the Coast. Unfortunately, many of the games made through this process, the games prior to Baldur's Gate 3, were either bad, straight up bad, or really overly monetized, or mobile games, or just really concerning. So that's gonna be a thing that sticks with them, despite the success of Baldur's Gate 3. And perhaps in spite of Baldur's Gate 3's success, because it has set itself up as kind of an incredible game that was the merging of all these different factors all coming together. And it's gonna be hard to recreate that magic. It's gonna be hard to follow it up, especially without the people that made it. So perhaps in that sense, another game by the D&D license, another game that was not a Baldur's Gate 4, wouldn't have the same challenges. A new Neverwinter Nights or an entirely new D&D type game wouldn't have the same pressure. But it does appear that Hasbro is aware of that, when they said, we're now talking to a lot of partners and being approached by a lot of partners who are embracing the challenge of what does the future of the Baldur's Gate franchise look like? So we certainly hope that it's not another 25 years as it was from Baldur's Gate 2 to 3 before we answer that. But we're going to take our time and find the right partner, the right approach, and the right product, and could represent the future of Baldur's Gate. We take that very, very seriously, as we do with all our decisions around our portfolio. We don't rush into decisions as to who to partner with on products or what products we should be considering. I think there's a couple products that they may have rushed on, but you know, I'll take them at their very tenuous word here at the very beginning that they're at least trying to find a good partner, because messing up Baldur's Gate 4 would be very, very costly. So that's like the thing that I'm hanging on to right there. But the question is, when I think of who could make a game that could follow up Baldur's Gate 3, that list of developers is very short for me. And I don't even know if it includes anyone, or if it'll have to be a new studio that I haven't really gotten to experience yet. But it's worth noting that this approach, this is how we got Baldur's Gate 3 in the first place. You see, first Larian went to Wizards of the Coast and originally got turned down about making a Baldur's Gate 3. And then after Larian started showing off Original Sin 2, Wizards of the Coast was the one to reach out to Larian to see if they were still interested. This kind of selection of the team that would make the game that they wanted to make. So it is worth noting that this is not necessarily uncharted territory. It's just that the expectations will be sky high, though one might argue that they already were when Baldur's Gate 3 was in development in the first place. Because after all, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 were very beloved games. So perhaps there will be another partner out there that can try and make a game that is a worthy successor. But there's an important thing that will need to come with that, I think. While I know that a lot of people would enjoy having entirely new characters, there is something very, very special about the characters in Baldur's Gate 3. So what did the actors think? Well, the characters by Larian for Baldur's Gate 3, Karlach, Shadowheart, Astarion, Will, etc., are actually now a part of D&D canon, and as such are owned by Wizards of the Coast. And on that note, several of the hearts of those characters, their actors, have said they'd be willing to return to a sequel, even without Larian's involvement.
Larry just said Baldur's Gate 3, they're leaving that. Oh yeah, see the characters belong to Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
How would you feel like if you were asked to revisit them about Larry and his guidance? That'd be strange to you. Would you be like, let's see what they got. Let's see what they got.
The script.
Show me the script. Yeah, is it any good?
Yeah, that's it. Show me the writing.
So writing is so strong on this, you know, so let's see what you got.
Yeah.
See what you got, Wizards.
As Baldur's Gate 3, they're saying farewell to that. But obviously, these characters are in the hands of Wizards of the Coast. How do you feel about returning to Astarion?
If anybody ever made me an offer to do so, I'd jump at a chance.
Because I think it's like that character's taken on the line. So
I don't know, but he's a wonderful character to play. I mean, if somebody ever turned around and say, "Hey, you want to do it again?" I'd be say yes. Again, obviously, I'm not done with him yet. But I don't know if anybody wants to use good then.
But perhaps even more tantalizing as a huge fan of Honor Among Thieves movie, Neil Newbin was emphatic about the desire to be part of a sequel to that movie. And that movie is one of the best movies I've seen in some time. It is a fun jaunt into D&D, and if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. It's on like streaming services everywhere, I think. It's worth watching. Like they put on a fantastic look at D&D, and I really hope we get a sequel sometime. At least, you know, you can watch it in between your Baldur's Gate 3 PlayStations.